I just felt that something huge has already happened, and I was not sure if I would be able to bear this responsibility, because as we know as Hatha Yoga teachers that it's a huge responsibility. I mean, we know clearly that we haven't really experienced the we haven't experienced the real magic of yoga yet. We are still, it's on the way, we are on the way, but and still we want to impart these tools with everybody. So we have to have that honesty, that balance, and that straightforwardness. Only then we will be able to give these tools or share these tools with others. um, uh, so yes, it just hit me that it was something huge has already happened.
Namaskaram, everyone. Welcome to my channel. So, welcome to my new podcast, Conscious Conversation. So, today we would be having a conversation with Dhanashri Joshi, and I'm really very happy to have you on my podcast today. So, she is also from my same batch, 2019. We did our Hatha Yoga teacher training together. And the best part is we were from the same location. So she's also from Pune and I am also from Pune. So we our journey not only started there but from our airport. So we were not know I did not know that she is also going to do the teacher training and she is also from Pune. But that day we were in the same line when we were in the airport, and I seen her and she was having a yoga mat and a luggage, and I was like, is she also coming for the same course? And it was that question came to my mind, and as my nature is, I go ahead and asked her, are you also coming for the teacher training? And she said, yeah, I'm also coming. And her parents were there uh, to see off her that day. So I clearly remember that day, and the journey started from there. I know her, and we were also in the same, so in the Hatha Yoga teacher training, they divide it into some groups. So there was particular group in which me and Dhanashri were in the same group. So we were also there together. So it's been wonderful, Dhanashri. Welcome. I very heartily welcome to you on my channel. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram. Thanks a lot,
I'm
Akka.
I'm so happy, and she is an aspiring yogini, as we all are. But I think she is in the true sense a yogini. So I really feel that. So why don't you start, Dhanashri? Like, introduce yourself to the audience as what do you do right now? And she is so young, as you can see. So yeah, you can introduce yourself, your family. You can talk about that.
Okay, so namaskaram, everybody. Um, as Palaka said, my name is Dhanashri, and right now I'm 22 years of age, though I look 18, because when I joined the training, everybody was so enthusiastically welcoming me, and they were like, "Oh, you must be the youngest participant," and they asked me my age, and I said I was 20, and then, "Oh, then you're not," because 18 was the minimum age limit. But yeah, everybody thought that I was the youngest participant. Um, before the training, I just graduated from college. I did my bachelor's in psychology in Pune, and I was also performing in theater. So I was a theater artist, and I really liked it. But somehow, when I started Isha Yoga, when I started yogasanas mainly, um, many things about me changed, and somehow I wanted to go further. I wanted to learn more, and I wanted to share that with other people. So, in a few months after I started learning Isha Yoga practices, I was in the ashram for 5 months for the training. So yes, that was a turning point in my life, definitely. And so um, I live with my father and mother, and I have an elder sister. Uh, she's always supporting me no matter what I'm doing. She lives in the Netherlands in Europe. So yes.
Okay. So that's very interesting. I think she's so young and at so early age she got a chance. I think at the early age she got introduced to Isha. That is something so wonderful that happened to you. So why don't you start like how was you as a child, when you were a child, how was you? Like you are a child now as well, if I may say, but yeah, so when you were like very young, how was you? Yeah.
um, I think I used to be, I don't know, I was an extrovert. I like to be around people. I like to talk to people. I still do. In school, I used to participate in everything. I was that kind of a student who wanted to do everything, like study, and then I used to be in sports and other extracurricular activities. So, yeah, I was a part of many activities when I was young. So, if I think about it, then I did not have any spiritual orientation at that time. Um, I just, yeah, I just like to do many things, explore different things. But yeah, at the same time, I would say I was a little bit more mature. Like I could understand people and I could empathize. So that's what other people used to tell me also, that you understand. I mean, um, the age that you are right now, you understand more. It was like that. But otherwise, yeah, I was just like any other student.
So how come you choose like psychology, like that side? Like generally, that was a very even I can say the bold kind of subject because psychology is something such a strong subject. I feel because you have to deal with people and you have to understand them, and so how come that interest developed and you choose that line into your career?
So one thing was that I had realized one thing, that I was not at all good at science. So
Okay.
in 11th, 12th, when I chose science, physics, chemistry, biotechnology, all these subjects came. And in
Mhm.
depth, we had to study them. And one thing was that I was sure that I did not want to do that. Um, and at the same time, uh, I kind of had many questions about our mind. Like, it fascinated me how it works and how emotions develop and how people behave the way they do. When they are alone, they are different. When they are with people, they are different. And these questions kind of intrigued me. And I wanted to know more about it. And that's why psychology. Yeah.
So psychology is only 2 years, 2 years course because in 18th you must have completed 12th or it was like 3 years because generally any degree is of 3 years or how was it?
Yeah, it was a bachelor's degree. It was a 3-year course.
Okay, okay. So you must have completed your 12th in 17 years then.
Yeah, and then in 2019, I was done with my BA.
Okay.
So a few months before the training, my graduation was over. It was like
So how is your relation with your mother, father, and your sister? And you both are sisters. So like,
that.
so how is that equation?
Yeah. So about my sister, she loves me a lot, a lot. I mean, she cares for me a lot, and she loves me a lot, and she's always there to support me. Um, when uh, when I was in 10th, at that time she went for her studies abroad. So I was here with my parents only. Of course, it was really nice. I mean, there was no problems with my parent, either with my parents or with my sister, nothing like that. Uh, but um, uh, So yes, just one thing, it was like it confused me and others also, that I was changing my decisions a lot, uh, like about mainly about my career. So I started studying science and then I went for psychology. And when I started studying psychology, I was totally into theater and I ignored psychology completely. And then yoga came. So it was like many different things at the same time. So these things confused them as well as me. But I would say that they were really understanding about everything. They would talk to me, and they would they would try to understand each and everything that is going in my life. So with my parents, it's wonderful. With my sister, it's wonderful. And my mother, she's also an Isha meditator. She was the person without like because of her I joined Isha. She introduced me to inner engineering, so she was the reason why uh, I am here right now, basically an Isha Hatha Yoga teacher. So yes, so somehow she was the reason why I turned towards spirituality. So we
So
have a different bond.
so when did she did the course, inner engineering course, and how come she wanted to do that? That would be interesting to know. Yeah.
So my mom was always interested in these things. She used to read a lot of books. She was interested in Ayurveda. She was interested in traditional spiritual wisdom, everything related to that. And as we all know, like most of us know Sadhguru, like we started or we got introduced to Sadhguru via YouTube, most of us.
YouTube. Yeah.
So yeah, so she was one of them. And when she started watching his videos, and whatever he said made a lot of sense. So she enrolled for inner engineering program. And then at that time, I was I was very clueless about what I was doing. So it was nice of her to take me there. Of course, at that time, I was not at all interested. I was very resistant towards the whole process of inner engineering. But yes, that's how I went there the first time.
So when did that happen? Like in which
Uh,
year?
in in 2016, December 2016.
Okay, so you were like almost 15, 16 years at that point.
Uh, yes. Right now I'm 21, so it's 2021. Yeah, I think I was 16,
Yeah.
16,
16,
17. Yes.
yeah, that's what
Hmm.
it means. Actually, I think 14 years is the age limit, right? For inner engineering. What's the age
Yeah,
limit?
I
I
think it
think.
is 14. Yeah.
So how was your experience? So your mom did, and she was doing the mandala. Did you find any change? And then you said like, okay, let me also try it if she's insisting me to do that. So that was your starting point, or you heard the videos of Sadhgurus and then you thought like, let me give it a chance.
Yeah. So for me, for 2 years, I did not do anything. I
Hmm.
was not even willing to notice the changes. I was
Okay.
not at all interested. So, but one thing happened that I started watching Sadhguru's videos. Uh,
Hmm.
and at the same time, I was dealing with these things that I have many questions, but I have no answers. And I don't know how
Hmm.
to find the answers. And I don't know how to be stable. If I want to do anything in my life, the first thing is that I need to be balanced and stable. And it was lacking in me totally. Um, so in that context, Sadhguru's videos helped me a lot and they interested me. So uh, I realized that it was a mistake not doing these practices that were given to me. So then I went for a program as a volunteer in an engineering program. I refreshed my practice because by that time I had forgotten everything. So I refreshed my practice and I learned yogasanas also. And these two things kind of changed me a lot. So in 2018, uh, I started practicing.
So when you attended the Yogasana program, what was in your mind? Because people usually go enroll to any yoga thing. Then the way we conduct the classes, it is totally very different, and the things are the yogasanas also is very different. So what was your experience of that particular class, and how did that stuck you? And made you like taking a decision of becoming an Hatha yoga teacher? So how does that happen?
So one thing is the presence of that teacher. He was so still and calm, and the program was very organized. These two things really hit me because I had never seen such a disciplined and organized way of imparting any practice. And it happens in Isha, and I think everybody talks about this, that it is so organized, it is so disciplined, and the way the volunteers approach you, everything makes a difference. It's a simple arrangement of the class, but still it is it kind of invites you, the way the music is played in the class, the way the teacher gives the instructions, and the practice itself, of course, because in like first 2 days we had already started noticing like at least minute changes in ourselves just by practicing, just by starting to practice these asanas. um, so yes, it was a wonderful experience for me,
So after
yogasanas.
that, you did your mandala and everything, and then after you continued then both the things like Shambhavi as well as yogasanas after doing that.
Yes, so Shambhavi, I strictly completed my mandala. Yogasanas, I did not complete the mandala. I skipped 1 or 2 days. I would skip the practice, but I continued it. I did not stop it totally.
Mhm. So how did the interest in theater came to you? Like when you were doing, like how did the theater happen to you? From psychology, you taken the psychology and then the theater. So how did that shift
Yeah.
happen?
So theater intrigued me like way before I started studying psychology. I clearly remember that day. I was in 11th, and it was one of my friends was performing in a play. So I was there, and uh, it was like it was amazing. I just thought that it's magical the way people are performing. Like it's such a small space, but it is so grand, and people are like predicting somebody they're not, but still doing it so genuinely. And the script, the dialogues, the whole system, uh, the emotions, the way they came out of them. So all this was a very grand experience for me, I would say. And at that time, I had decided that someday I would at least try to be here. Like it was not like my plan to be a professional actor or something, anything like that. It was just like I wanted to try it, give it a shot. And then when I was studying science, it did not happen. But then when I started studying psychology in Ferguson College, so that possibility opened up for me. So there is a competition called Purushottam Karandak. It is very famous in Pune, and almost every college tries to participate in it. So I auditioned for it, and I then got in the group, and that's how it started.
Okay. So, and that what was the challenges you were facing? You were saying about like something like you were very confused and that then yogasanas or inner engineering practices. So what was as a as we feel like teenage what problems could be like study is only the one thing or relationships
Yeah.
are other another things I feel, but I feel like now youngsters like face so many different challenges, the competition, the right kind of competition, the healthy one, they it's like a lot of pressure is building up. So what type of challenges you were facing that you find that help inner engineering as well as yogasanas were helping you to sort you out of it? So what was can you just elaborate on that?
Yeah, so when I started performing in theater, one thing was that I um, I became very so dependent on people's opinions. I mean, if I'm performing something and after the performance is over, if somebody comes to me and gives me a negative feedback, it would be very hard for me to take it in, um, because it had become my mindset that I want to hear only nice things about me. Nothing wrong should come towards me. And this was kind of troubling me because it was not possible. If I'm doing something wrong, something will tell me that it is wrong. But I was not willing to take it in. So that was one thing. And other thing was, as you said, it was competition. Like I was seeing among my friends, I was seeing that some of them were trying so hard to get somewhere, and they were becoming a little bit depressed. They were becoming a little bit anxious. And one thing I was sure that I'm not going to be like this. I don't want to be anxious and depressed and then work hard and do something in my life that will be of no value. So whatever I do, I want to put my heart in it, and I want to be totally happy and involved. I don't want to be anxious. And so these things were happening around me, and I really wanted to change that. So the most needed thing was to be mentally and emotionally stable, and I was seeking that most
So
importantly.
you were becoming anxious at that point of time, or your friends, you were saying that they were becoming anxious?
Friends also, and somewhat me also. So mostly it was confusion that was more dominant in me, more than anxiety. Of course, confusion brought a little bit of anxiety, but confusion in the sense that being absolutely clueless about what I want to do and how I want to be. And there were so many options, and they were all interesting, but I did not know how to be focused on one thing. And losing that focus, like again and again, it was it was not a good place to be. So yes, I wanted to change that.
Then, did you find that after practicing yogasanas, everything, you were able to be more involved and more, you were able to take a decision like what you want to do? That was becoming clear to you? Was
Yeah, so one thing I noticed in a few days was that my mind was becoming calmer, and that was like most needed. I was very happy with that. So my mind was becoming calmer, and then I could really think about something uh, with focus, with attention, not getting distracted by other things. Um, that was one thing, and also I was becoming happier, and I was feeling energetic, and also um, my I became less rigid, I would say, because I was really choosy about some things. I want to do this, but I don't want to do this at all because it is of no importance, like household chores. But after doing yogasanas, my state, my mental and emotional state became such that I was willing to do anything. And that opened my heart so much that I wanted to have more of it, whatever that experience was.
what about your sister? Did you find that your relationship also get changed? And people were now that is okay that you were able to understand them more, but does people were able to change, see the difference in you, like how you were reacting now, or having a communication with them, or putting your point forward? Did they find any changes in you after that?
Um, they did not see any drastic changes in me, to be honest. But some of them have told me that I was happier, like I was more joyful when I was with them. So I think that was one comment that I got. And with my sister, it was always like we did not have any problems ever. So yeah, it was just totally okay. It was going very well.
Recently, your sister got married. I came
Yeah,
to know. Very congratulations to you and even to your
thank
sister.
you.
So
Yeah.
how was that experience now? Now she has been that it's very hard, right? Because even though she was at the in the foreign itself right now, also you said like she is in Netherlands. There is a long distance already. But still, do you find that after marriage there is some kind of, difference came into relationship, or some kind of, you do you feel that it is something different than when she was not married and now she's married? Or uh, I think this also our practices and everything helps us to deal with that as well, because it's a big change, right? It's a change
Hmm.
that is happening. So you want to talk about it? How is it for you now?
Yeah, so it did not change negatively, and nothing changed negatively because her husband, I call him Abhijit Dada. I call him Dada only. So he became a part of our family. That's the only thing that has changed, and it's a beautiful change. So even to so we used to talk with her like every weekend. We used to have a Skype call, video call, and now he is also there. So that's the only
Okay.
thing, and it is they both are, I don't know, in a way they are like my parents and also very young parents.
Uh-huh.
So they are too cute, and um, even though they are they are living there, they have their own life. They will always find time for me to understand me and to check like if everything is going well. My sister is totally like that. I just want you to be happy. That's the only thing that matters to her. So um, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, you just have to be happy. That's the only thing that she cares about. And she's always asking me, is everything going well? And she says that I always have her back. Um, so yeah, and I am sure that I will. That's the kind of bond we have. Yeah, it's beautiful.
Wonderful. So they are doing their like higher studies, or they're doing some job, or what is her professional background?
She's doing her postdoctorate there in biotechnology, and her husband Abhijit Dada, he's done with it.
Okay.
So yeah, they're working as scientists in laboratories there.
Okay. Wonderful. You must be so proud that she is doing such a great
I'm
in her.
totally proud. Kind of I'm very surprised also. Like, how can one study so much? After my bachelor's, I was exhausted, and she wants to study more and more. And yeah, they're really like they're very passionate about science, both of them.
Okay. So, so did their parents like got set back and got confused, like when you showed an interest, like you want to become an hatha yoga teacher, because it's totally very different, and it little expensive as well. So,
Hmm.
as compared to other yoga courses which are being offered on other places. So, how did that happen? When did you had a question like, no, no, I want to do this, and then you started exploring, and how did your family supported it? Because I know they supported you, so like how did
Yeah.
that journey happen?
Um, so initially, yes, there was some friction because, uh, as you said, the course was expensive, and uh, I changed many things. So I like at that time I was changing a lot, everything. My decisions were changing rapidly, and that got them confused, of course. And uh, so we had a lot of discussion about everything. And then we tried to contact other Hatha Yoga teachers who were already here, who were taking classes. And Advait Anna was one of them. He also conducts classes in Pune. So I remember calling him and asking him that I'm interested, and like after you come back, can you take classes? Is it supporting you financially? All these questions we all had. So I asked him, and so yes, we got in contact with other teachers, and also uh, it was just a very strong urge within me. I could not really explain it because I knew that logically it wasn't a sound. I did not have a sound plan that okay, I'm done with this, now I'm going to go do this, and when I come back I did not have any clue. When I come back, what will I do? I don't know. But the urge was so strong, and I knew that I had to visit that space. And I'm so young, I can do a lot. If I'm if I can just explore this dimension, I can do a lot. That was my thought. And so yes, after a lot of discussion, a little bit of crying, and all these things. Yes, so one thing was that my parents were clear that if you're 100% sure, of course, we are not going to stop you. So if you're sure, if you really want to go, you go. And then, yeah, we did everything, all the procedure, and then I went for the training.
So did you went to ashram before that? Like before the training?
No, it was my first time to visit the ashram. I was super excited. Even my
Mhm.
driver was excited when I took that cab. He was also excited because such a small girl is sitting behind me. So he's just showing me places, different places. When we entered the ashram, there was this Adiyogi statue beside us. So he's like, "Look at it! It's 112 feet. Look at it!" And it was like so. After this playful ride, I entered the ashram, and yes, it was my first time to visit that place.
So after you came to the ashram, uh, what was your first experience going to Dhyanalingam and Devi Temple? If you want to share that.
So, first time I went to Dhanalinga, it took some time for me to really experience that space because it is very intense. That space is very, very intense, and it doesn't happen that. I mean, for me, it did not happen that I just sat and I just connected with it. It did not happen like that. It took some time. Like after 2 to 3 rounds, I began experiencing that place and the stillness of Dhanalinga mainly. So yes, then I realized that in my experience, it was like something is pulsating, something is vibrating, like everywhere here, and still at the same time, it is very still. And somehow I don't know how to, how to reach it. I still experience it the same way. Like if I sit there, I know that something very intense is happening here, but I don't know how to reach. I don't know how to get there, but one day I will. That's how I think
As
about
yeah,
it.
aspiring yogini that we
Yeah.
all are. What about Devi Temple? Uh,
Yeah, Devi Temple was totally different. The energy there is very vibrant, and I could connect with the temple very easily. Uh, Initially, I was reluctant because Sadhguru had said that Devi is becoming more famous than Dhanalinga, but he had told many things about Dhanalinga, that it is like a live guru. So you can be in that space and it can do miracles to you. So somehow it was in my mind that okay, so I should be attracted towards Dhanalinga more than Devi. So uh, for some days I did not even visit Linga Bhairavi temple, but when I did, that energy was very uplifting. Like emotionally, it was very warm, and it made me happy. Dhanalinga made me intense, but Devi made me happy. And as a combination, it was a very nice blend. Yeah.
what about Chandrakund? So how did you find that? Did you
So
had a
yeah,
dip there?
yes. So one thing, it was freezing.
Yeah, it's so
That's
cold.
the first sensation that you get. That it's too cold. But once you get comfortable with the temperature, yes, there's this lightness, some lightness that you feel in the system. So yes, Chandrakund was a very refreshing experience for me. I love to go there. I did not go very frequently though, uh, but whenever I went, I really loved it.
Like coming to like so when you came first time into the ashram, so what were you expect? You know, you we always have a build up, right? We always have a build up like when we'll go there, you know, this things we will be able to experience and you know some kind of we have a mindset, we make a mindset about some things before going there. So do you find that the place was totally different than what you were thinking, or it was what you were expecting? How was it?
Um, to be honest, in my case, I had no expectation that such. I mean, I knew that whatever I'm going to experience is not something that I can sit at home and imagine. So
Mm-hmm.
I had kept it open only. Whatever it is, I just want to go, and I was very curious about the place. So maybe intentionally, unintentionally, but I did not have any strong opinions or ideas about that place. So yeah, it was as simple as that.
Okay, so how was the course for you? Like, it is so intense, as you mentioned, as well as I think everybody goes something different. Okay, everybody's, I think, challenges are very different than every individual. Challenges are very different. So for you, what was the most challenging part of the training?
Mm, so I think at one point I realized that my system was not totally prepared for the training. Like mainly my digestive system was not prepared. With the like the schedule was so hectic. We have to wake up at 4:30, and then the day will go on till 10 p.m. It was becoming too hectic after a point. So at the pace of the system and the pace of the training were like there was a big gap. So my system is running at a certain pace, but I have to match with the pace of the training. So that was a little bit challenging, and otherwise emotionally sometimes it was challenging because as we know, as you said, hatha or every sadhana for that matter, it is a subjective experience for everybody. So sometimes very strong and unpleasant emotions would come up, like they would come on the surface, and I would not know how to handle them. And then I would just go through it because I don't know how to kind of deal with it. It is so strong. So I'll just let it go. I'll just let it stay for a while, and whenever it the emotion wants to go, it will go. So some that phase was there for some days, and that was the most challenging phase of the training, where so much was happening inside me, but I did not know how to control it. So it was kind of uncontrolled and just going at randomly.
So, uh, do you want to share like what about the food and
Hmm.
how did that ashram food is so I think it's totally very different now, how the way we look to the food and how we experience the food within us and everything gets changed. So for you, how did that journey of food with food, the connection with the food, do you feel that it got changed after the training?
Yes, connection definitely did, because it was the first time when somebody told me that you can actually look at food with gratitude and love. I had no such thought in my mind before, and when I did, the first invocation in Bhiksha Hall, that itself was so like transformative in a way that with this food, I mean, in my mind, it was like this is the duty of the food to fill my stomach. So that kind of arrogance was there, but now it was not any less than me. The food that I was eating was not any less than me. So if it is willing to become a part of me, I have to be grateful towards it, and it just came naturally with that first invocation. So, and it is beautiful whenever, even today, whenever I eat food. And one thing happened that after the training, I haven't wasted a single morsel of food. on my plate, whatever it is, it just happens naturally that I'll eat everything. So and yes, it is, the food was so nutritious and as well as very, very delicious. Bhiksha Hall food is something else altogether. Unbeatable.
E- Even I try so much to replicate it, even to, to make it that kind of thing. It never happened. You can't. I think the ambience. I think that the
Yeah.
ambience that is being there, because everybody is walking in the same space, and here, even if you are alone trying to do that, I think I think something is very different, which I strive every day to, kind of bring that ashram to the home, but I
Mhm.
think it's so difficult. uh, yeah. So what was the fun part of the training? Like, what did you like the most in the training, and how, you can talk about that.
Yeah. So, if funny things like uh, mainly special dinners that we had, like I
Yeah.
really enjoyed those dinners. The first special dinner, I was so surprised. Like I was very happy. Okay, so we will be able to eat this kind of food also, where there are candle lights and there's decoration and people can sit with each other and then eat, just enjoy. Then dancing in the training, it was like it opened up me so much more. Just they would beat the drum and then we would dance, and there is no one to judge. Whichever way you want to dance, you can just go on, and that was amazing. And also trips. So whenever we visited any temples, South Indian temples are architecturally, they are very nice. They're amazing. And also if you just sit there, you know that it's a different space. You can experientially know it. So yes, trips were uh, a big part of the training that I really liked. And also in our base, so you said that we were in the same group. So I liked how people were in our group. So mainly you, I would say, because if it's someone's birthday, then you will come, you will get a cake. Then whatever little time we have in the afternoon, we will celebrate it. And I think these small moments matter a lot. I wouldn't have even thought about it, but you did, and you made it possible for like many people. And it was very touching when we celebrated our first birthday. It was very touching, and yes, I remember that. It was very
Uh,
nice.
Thank you so much. So how was like teachers, if you want to talk about our teachers in the ashram, how they were offering us, and if you want to say something, what do you want to say?
So maybe they were an example of devotion to me. All the teachers and volunteers. Uh, Whenever a teacher sat in front of us, he 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 offered everything that he had. And I remember this moment when we had just started learning yogasanas. So on the first day only of yogasanas, Ma came in, our teacher who taught us yogasana. She came in, and the moment she entered the hall, everything about that space changed, and I could completely sense it. I was looking somewhere else, and I was not even looking in the front, like who's coming, who's going. I was not even paying attention to it. It's just I'm doing something, I'm looking something somewhere else, and I just noticed that something has changed, and I look, and she had already entered the hall. So at that time, I realized that these people have a very strong presence. They really, really do. And um, wow, it was mind blowing for me. And every teacher, every volunteer, if they sit with you, they are just with you. and that's a very, very important quality. I did not have it. I would think about 100 different things if I'm with somebody. But if they are with you and they're sitting with you, they're just with you. They will listen to you. Whatever problems you have, they will listen to you. Whatever you want to share, they'll just listen to you. So this listening thing, I noticed the importance of listening, just listening to somebody, and it made like a big difference in how I saw people or how I was with people.
So there were so many, like we were like 167, around more than 160 people were there, and they were coming from all walks of life, from so many countries, so many cultures, and so many different, different. Uh, they were doing so many different things in their life before when we were there. So did you? Uh, was it fascinating for you? Like, how was that experience? Like, so many people from so many different countries, even languages, everything. So, what do you want to share something about that diversity?
Yeah, it was very liberating to be with people who came from different walks of life, who had different nationalities, different languages, and yeah, it was very liberating for sure. And my own roommate was a Chinese, so yes, it was very fascinating to know how she was, she just conducted herself. Even country wise, it changes a lot. How you just
Yeah.
conduct yourself, it changes a lot. So small things like and different habits. It's kind of really interesting uh, if you decide that you don't want to get annoyed with others' habits, then it is very fascinating to just observe somebody who comes from a different country. So the way she spoke the language, like the way she spoke English, it was kind of sweet. The sound was very sweet for me. And we had very little conversations, very short conversations, because most of the day we were out doing something. So only at night we will meet. Uh, but still, I kind of had a very warm relationship with her. And when the training ended, I remember this. So I had packed my luggage and I had kept it at the corner. So after some time, I'll just pick it up and go out. So when I had gone out for something else, and then when I entered the room again, there was this a small packet was kept on my luggage, and there was a small letter like, "You are the best roommate ever." And she had kept some dhanalinga laddus along with it. So that was very touching. I mean, we did not have long conversations or anything. Um, like in a while, we would just share some things, just like that. But just being with each other, being present with each other, it was very beautiful. And also, thrice it happened that we were about to be totally late for the class, and we both woke up at 5:15, and it was like, "Tak, in 15 minutes we have to be ready and go," and we would run and hush hush, things like that. So that was very fun. I enjoyed it.
I think, uh, as I mentioned at the start of the conversation as well that we started, I think even if I'm I think 10 years, 15 years elder than you, I still feel that the way you conduct yourself and the way like Yogini, I think you are much ahead than me. I really look up to you for that, and I really say that. So the way you were, I used to get fascinated looking to you. Like, she's so young. Even you, then Tiana. I was to look and like I wanted to become like her, no? Like involved like you into something. Then I realized is everybody is different, everybody's journey is different, their way of doing things are different. But you know how the mind is. It start comparing, it start seeing to people, but I was not in the wrong sense, in a very nice sense, but I used to like feel like, "Hey, I want to be that involved." I've seen you being such involved into your practices, and it was so inspiring for me in the training as well as now, like you're so young and still you are so involved, and you're doing your practices. The way you do the practices is something which I really want to do. I really want to do it one day. That I want to reach here, like that involved. I want to do the practices. So I want to really know your, when we used to do our bhakti sadhana. So it was really amazing to see you how you do the bhakti sadhana. So do you want to share something about it? I really want to understand how it was for you.
Yeah, so okay, Bhakti Sadhana, I remember the first day when we did Bhakti Sadhana. Sheila, she had come and she had, given the instructions and talked about Bhakti. So when I heard about it, it was like, oh, I have never seen the world with this perspective. It's so amazing. And so the first day was very overwhelming. Like just you bow down to everything and see everything as something higher than yourself. So just this posture, just this posture helps a lot. You just do this, and naturally you can see that, oh yes, it can be higher than me. I'm not the most important thing in the world. And it's a relief when you realize that you're not the most important thing in anybody's world or anybody's life. It's a relief. Then you kind of loosen up. And uh, yes, and it happened to me. Like whatever I saw, uh, I cried a lot on that day. It was too overwhelming. I just very sweet at the same time. Like something was breaking, something unpleasant, some unpleasant rigidness was breaking. And yeah, Bhakti Sadhana was something really wonderful. But I'll also say that doing Bhakti Sadhana and applying Bhakti every moment of your life is not the same. In my experience, it's not the same. Like it takes a lot
Lot.
to
It's not
really,
easy. It's a very
it's not
simple
at
thing
all.
to say than to do.
Yeah.
That's what I feel. And I don't think I reached a point. In some part of it, I was able to do that, what they were expecting us to do at that point of time. But I don't think we were able to do it for all the whole 10 minutes as well. Because
No,
too
no, no, not
difficult
at all.
to it's too difficult to do.
Yeah.
Even I've seen you many times crying so much, and I used to wonder what has happened into his life that she want to cry so much. She's just so young. What must have happened so much that, but it's
Nothing
not
had
about.
happened.
No, no,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm saying, like, then you realized the crying is not always when you have some suffering or something into you, but I think it could be gratitude, or it could be that crying is, that Sadhguru says, na, if you did not cried in your life, out of compassion, out of that, then you have not lived the life. The
Hmm.
tear of, the compassion and the tear of blissfulness, one should experience that tears when you had some struggle in your life, and that time you cry. I think that cry is very different than what I'm talking about. So I think
Yeah.
I've seen you that, and it's so wonderful. uh,
Yeah.
Wonderful to see you cry.
Yes, yes. Yeah, I mean, I think some moments are like that only when you have no control over it. It will just pour, and it's better to let it be like that only, because as an experience also it's very wonderful to have no reason,
Just to cry.
to
That's what
cry.
that compassion, with the compassion, or you can say the blissfulness, something is, loosened up and you are crying without any reason. You don't have anything in life to be cried about. Wonderful.
Yeah,
So,
I'm sorry, Aka, just on this note, I also, you were talking about compassion. So there's this, it's a very small experience, but one night I was walking out of Dhanalinga, and I'm just walking, and I saw this tree, and I went and hugged it. And wow, it was so soothing. I had never hugged a tree with such compassion. I mean, I remember hugging my friends and my family members and everybody, but a tree, I did not talk to it. It was like so different than me, but I totally remember that moment. I mean, I'm hugging it, and it's like it's there. The connection is so nice, it's so soothing, and I was there for some minutes, and then I walked. So yeah.
uh, do you remember like the aartis also that we used to see, the Dhanilingam Aarti, when we used to go, like our schedule was so tight, we were not
Hmm.
able to attend, but there was our silences. So do you want to talk about that? There were silences also during our course. So do you want to talk about that? How was the experience for you?
Yes, so the first silence day, oh, it was not good at all. Being silent for 24 hours, then I realized, okay, this is what not talking means. Oh, okay, this is this is not comfortable. That was the first silence. So, I mean, initially it was okay, like it was different. So I was just trying to explore it. But in the evening, it just hit me like, now I want to express. That urge was so compulsive, so strong that I want to utter something. I want to at least yell or speak, and but I could not. So, and I was doing my yogasanas. I'm going into the posture and I'm thinking I want to talk with somebody. I want to talk with somebody. It was very overwhelming. So, first silence day was challenging. But after that, as the next silence days came, every silence day was different. And mostly the meditations that we did, silence on the silence days at night, we sometimes we did some meditations. Those meditations were the most powerful meditations of the whole training, because uh, being silent for some hours and then being more inward and being in an energetic space and trying to do that meditation, it was wow, it was mind blowing for me.
Do you remember that on the so in the training we got very less chance to meet Sadhguru, but we met him twice during the training. So how was the experience for you for the both the time, for the first time he and for the later part on the last day?
So when he came, mostly whenever we also visit the general like ashram
Yeah,
satsang
ashram
that
visits,
he
Ashram Satsang.
he yeah he conducted at the Chandrakund. So at that time it was like we many people had questions he used to answer. So it was like joyful, nice, light. But when he came, it was our silence day only when he visited our like a batch. So that was overwhelming. I mean, I remember I'm sitting with my eyes closed. We are waiting for Sadhguru to come, and just tears started, yeah, coming out of me just so intensely. And when I just opened my eyes and he's already there sitting. And yeah, I just looked at him, and wow, it was the feeling was amazing, exhilarating. um, so whatever he said, it was very impactful. Whatever he said during that satsang, he said that you you should be hatha yogis, you should not be hatha yoga teachers. And I like clearly remember it, and I try to follow it because it may happen that whenever we are conducting a class or whenever we start teaching, it may just happen that we are only teaching, uh, but the essence should not go. And the essence is that you strive to be more than what you are, no matter what. You never stop. So that satsang uh, kind of helped me to, be with that. Even today, I follow that. I try to follow that.
So, like, how was your experience of the last day when Sadhguru offered us the lotus, and you know, how was that, the whole thing for you?
Uh, it, ma- as far as I remember, Akka, I think it was when he
Day
visited,
before.
he offered. Yeah, okay, okay. Uh, right. So, w wasn't it on the same day that he offered the flask? It was
No,
on the
no.
different day.
So on the
Okay.
silence day, we he silence day
Right,
he came. It was like way before, and then
right,
on the last day, the certificate we gave on the last day. Before that, he came when we had clicked a photo and he
right.
offered us. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So, mm, I just felt that something huge has already happened, and I was not sure if I would be able to bear this responsibility, because, as we know, as Hatha Yoga teaches, that it's a huge responsibility. I mean, we know clearly that we haven't really experienced the we haven't experienced the real magic of yoga yet. We are still, it's on the way, we are on the way, but and still we want to impart these tools with everybody. So we have to have that honesty, that balance, and that straightforwardness. Only then we will be able to give these tools or share these tools with others. um, uh, so yes, it just hit me that it was something huge has already happened, and okay, I have to carry it forward. So that was the feeling.
If you want to talk about Sadhguru, what do you want to say about it for you?
Ah, okay. um, wow. I don't know what to say, but um, I had shared this with one of the volunteers also, that what I can't really describe him, what he is, because I even don't know fully what he is. But in my experience, there's a quote of Sadhguru. He says that um, love is, I mean, it's not the exact words, but as far as I've understood, it's like that. It's not, love is not a pleasant emotion. It's a deep, wonderful pain. Love is a deep, wonderful pain, and I think he was the one who kind of uh, made it possible for me to at least little bit touch that feeling, what he calls as love. Being with him, being with his presence, it is deeply overwhelming, and I can see that that feeling is, I kind of cannot name it. But if it is love, then it is love. If it is something else, then it's something else. I don't know the name, but um that feeling was a foreign feeling for me. I had never experienced it before. So, and at the same time, he is very intimidating. That uh, in a way, I fear him, because he is trying to, kind of cut you. He's trying to cut you so that you will be able to experience something more. And if I am really like this, not willing to open up, then it will hurt. So this fear is always there. So there is always this mixed emotion whenever I see Sadhguru or think about Sadhguru, that it is the best thing that can happen to anybody, to that a life master is there for you, and mm, he is promising you that if you do these things, then you don't care about anything else. I'll take care of everything else. So he talks in such ways, and it just feels that I'm falling short. And yeah, I don't know, he's a big, huge ocean, and I haven't even understood a drop of it.
It was too complex to understand what you were trying to say, I can say. Uh, so, like now, what do you, if you want to, like, obviously, everybody got transformed. Now, not even before the Hatha Yoga teacher training, also, like doing inner engineering, practicing yogasanas also transformed you. But doing after completing the Hatha Yoga teacher training, what big transformations you feel within you?
Mm, one thing is balance. I'm much more balanced than I was, like a lot. I mean, the I understood balance because of the training only. Um, that's one thing. Other things are like, um, so some experiences in the training were, mm, I don't know if you call them spiritual, because there is no such, there is no clear definition as to if this is spiritual, this is not spiritual, or but some experiences were, um, totally beyond my understanding. And in the training as well as in other programs like Bhavaspandana. So Bhavaspandana is a program that, it's a crazy ride altogether. You don't even understand what's happening to you. So these things, at least, they've made me realize that there's so much more beyond what I am experiencing right now. So that thirst, uh, that training was a big part of, just, uh, I don't know, activating or stimulating that thirst within me. Um, and yes, now I'm much more balanced. I'm much more accepting towards other people, and I'm much more aware. So that's also very important. Now I can notice many things about my mind, mostly about my mind, my tendencies. I can be aware of them. They were always there, but I'm surprised how I never noticed them. But right now I can just have a top view, distantly. I can look at myself, what's going on in my head, how I'm behaving. So that distance has come. Yeah.
Uh, as I clearly forgot, like, how was your experience for Bhavaspandana? Do you want to talk about that? I think you did it
Bhavaspandana.
after the course. You did
Yes,
that.
after the course.
Mm.
So I was, like, I thought that I okay, it's after this training I'm going, so I'm totally prepared, no worries, nothing. But for Bhavaspandana program, they organize that hall in a completely different way. The moment you enter, you can actually sense it. It's so energetic. It's, like, wow, there's so much energy in there. And Bhavaspandana was totally exhausting. Training was exhausting, that's true, but Bhavaspandana was on a different level. Just in 4 days, I was out. Like, so mentally and also physically, it was very exhausting, Bhavaspandana. So I won't say that Bhavaspandana was a very pleasant experience. It was not for me. But some processes, they were they were wow, they were like amazing. So I wouldn't be able to, like, say the process or disclose anything about it. But in one process, I can clearly see that, okay, I like, I'm not the body, not the body. Uh, this, and I was feeling so light, so light. Like, to describe it, as if you're open, if you're flying in space, if there's nothing around you, you're just flying in space. It was so light and amazing. So that process, I remember, that process was very pleasant as well as very liberating. Some other processes were totally exhausting. I couldn't even think about it after it was over. Like,
Uh, so if you want to so people usually think that you are so young, spirituality is something which you have to do it after some age or something. So do you want to tell something about it? Is it really a right statement which people usually feel like you have to do this particular things or go into spirituality or explore it when you are of certain age, or you have to do it after everything is done, then you don't have anything into a life to do, and then you do the spirituality. Is it a right thing to? What do you
um,
want to say for that?
I think there's this concept among us that if you are spiritual, you have to be dead serious, as Sadhguru says. Don't be dead serious about life. It's just a play. So spirituality is just playing, playing that game of life. Um, but yes, I won't say that they are wrong because maybe they have read such things. Maybe they have seen some examples where people go into it and people become like too serious, or people become totally disconnected. Um, so, but that's not true with everybody. I mean, there are some people who maybe when once they step into spirituality, uh, their like their journey is so fast that they really don't need anything with them. They will be able to just walk it gracefully. There are such people in the ashram also. So also there's nothing wrong with that also, because they live very powerfully and they don't miss anything. They don't think that they're missing out on anything. But it doesn't mean that everyone will be like that. Everyone will be disconnected, or not disconnected, like everyone will be on their own. It's not even like that. So there are many people who are doing spiritual practices and they're equally involved in other activities. You, Palaka, being one of the examples, because you do your job, you have a family, you're doing this, like conducting these interviews, you have a channel, and you're doing your practices. So everything can be done because now you have much more energy. If you how you want to utilize it, it's on you. But spirituality as such won't tell you that you have to go away from the society or anything. It's just in a way it uplifts you. It gives you more freedom in your relationships also. If you're accepting towards others, then the bond becomes more beautiful. So if you want to be involved with other people and as well as be an active spiritual seeker, it is totally possible. They are not like opposites, they go together.
Such wonderfully said, because this is a misconception which is there in the society where people feel that this is the last thing to be done in your life, the spirituality. I think this is the first thing that you should do, and which can go hand in hand. And I think you can do or live life more gracefully, more joyfully. If you don't have this, if you have tools with you, I think you can ride this ride more joyfully and gracefully than if you don't have it. I think it would be a lot of struggle otherwise. So I just wanted to, like all the viewers, whoever are saying who are young, this is the right time to come into spirituality, I feel, instead of waiting it out and seeing that when once that this age will come, that will happen. I will have one house, one car, one kid, a kind of misconception people
Yeah.
has, and then I will come to this path. I think that's a very wrong way. Uh, and so do you want to talk about like how currently how do you manage everything? Now you are doing the post graduations as well. Even you are doing very actively, you are taking classes. If people have to contact you for the classes, how can they do that? And how you are managing everything? And even you are doing the theater. So if people has to see your plays as well, are there online options as well where they can do that? So you can just talk about what's your current dynamics is and how you're doing everything.
Okay, so mostly right now, as far as theater is concerned, I'm not very involved with theater right now because uh, I'm not able to really fit that in. Um, uh, but otherwise, yes, actively I'm taking classes. So I was taking morning batches mostly, but I've started now taking evening batches. So in Kothrood, there's a hall near City Pride Kothrood where I conduct classes. It's mostly 3 classes in a month, different classes I'll conduct, and also I'll be starting some review sessions for those people who had started the practice, but somehow they could not, continue it. Many people have a lot of doubts and questions. So for them, there will be review sessions. Like frequently, I'll be conducting some review sessions as well. And so as
So
far as my
yeah,
education, yeah.
you can share the address and this thing so that people can contact you. So how they
Okay.
can do that? Is there any website or something that you can share?
Yeah. So the website's name is Yoga Tattva. um, if you just visit the site, you will be able to find the programs and upcoming events, and also some information about the programs that will help you to decide which program you want to go for. um, and also I conduct classes in Kothrood. There's a clinic called Prabhu Desai Eye Clinic, and they have a conference hall. So in that conference hall, I'm conducting the classes.
Okay.
So yeah, they can just reach out to me. Whoever wants to learn, just reach out to me. I'll share all the details, upcoming programs, everything. And as far as my education is concerned, right now it's just 2 hours online classes. So yeah, I'm just managing it well. There are two morning classes, 10 to 12, and after that, I'm free to do whatever that I need to do about classes, about my practices. So
Mhm.
right now it's not very hectic. So yes, it's going very well.
So how is like financially you are doing this? So what do you want to say to other people who are like want to do this or come to this? Do you think, because I'm not doing it yet full time, but I really wish to, and I'm going to do it soon, that I would be full time doing yoga teacher, becoming a yoga teacher. So how is it financially for you? Uh, do you want to, if you share some lights on that?
So financially, I would say that uh, since I don't have many responsibilities, like I'm very young, and yeah, I'm doing my masters, and there are no other big responsibilities that I need to handle right now. So whatever income I'm getting from the classes is like more than enough. It's totally sufficient. But if somebody also has a family, they also have other responsibilities, they have, big plans, then maybe as you're doing, like they will do their job and part time they'll teach. That will be the best way to start with. But it is not like you won't get money from yoga. Like, as far as my experience is concerned, many people are interested and they will reach out, and if you're available for them, they will come for your class. So as financially, it is not like you can't earn. You can totally earn with your classes. And I think I've heard of some examples also. I don't know their names, but some Isha Hatha Yoga teachers have started their studios and they're going very well financially also. Many participants are there. So they are able to share these wonderful tools, and also the income is good. So these things can happen.
Yeah. So I think if so, you have your Instagram and Facebook or other things also where people can contact you, or the website is enough where they can get all the types of details.
Yeah, so the website has my contact details, like my phone number and email ID. So
Mhm.
mostly, if they just call me, it will be the best way to, reach out, because Facebook and Instagram, I'm not very active. But if they just leave a message, I'll surely check it and I'll get back to them. So yes, I am there on Facebook. My name is Dhanashri Joshi, and Instagram also. It's dhanu.hatha. So they can visit the pages. Yes.
Okay. I think it was wonderful talking to you, Dhanashree. I think we had a really nice conversation. It was, I did not know much about you, like in very little, as our training was so intense and we did not got that much time to know each other, but we know enough. We even conducted classes together, some online classes. So corporate classes. So if anybody is also interested, we can do that as well. It was wonderful talking to you. It was such a nice to see, like such a young age you were able to take a decision and go into this direction, and you're doing so wonderfully. Thank you so much for accepting this and having a conversation with me. Thank you so much.
Thank
Namaskaram.
you so much, Akka. Thank you so much. And yes, thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. And I would also like to say that you inspire me a lot. I have said this many times, but I don't know how you manage whatever you're doing. It's just unbelievable for me. I am not the kind of person who will do 10 things at the same time and do them well. I'll do I do it very slowly. It's for me it's like that. But you're always a very beautiful example in front of me in that sense. And I really think about you. If I want to do many things at the same time, I will think about you, how she handles it. This is how you want to handle this. And
I
yes,
think we are
so thank
aspirations to
you.
each other. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Akram.
Namaskaram.
Namaskaram.